will have it served when they go to restaurants, but it's absolutely acceptable if the cake gets baked in a small vessel like this called a ramekin, and you serve it with a spoon and call it a day. If you want to flip the cake out onto a plate, you have to prepare whatever you're baking in really, really well, or it's not going to come out. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare them. And I have to tell you, I have a really wonderful colleague who's a pastry chef, and she was telling me that she worked in a country club where this dessert, there were hundreds of them flying out the door, every week. And so what she does is she literally just butters them really, really well. The recipe that you have will tell you that after you butter them, you can dust the inside of them with a variety of options: sugar, cocoa powder, or flour. So what I thought I'd do is I have one that I'm just going to butter a lot. We'll see how this one comes out. And then I have one that I'm going to butter, then I'm going to put a little bit of flour in. I'm not a huge fan of using flour with it. And the reason being is I think that sometimes that flour, that cloudiness gets on the cake, and I don't think it's very attractive. Nonetheless, it works really well in getting the cake out. So you're just going to take a little bit of flour, put it into the ramekin, and you're just going to slide it around the pan, or the vessel or the ramekin, because you want to make sure that you are coating it, because this is going to help with the release. So once you do that, you're going to dump it out. And then this is a really important step. You're going to tap it. And I just want to show you, I don't know if you can see this. There's a ton of flour that I just tapped out. And so even you'll see that there's still flour in the container, but all this would have kind of been grabbing onto your cake if you didn't tap it out. So really important, that's a really important step that you do. So I want to go to the actual batter itself. What I love about this cake is that you can prepare the batter ahead of time. This batter I prepared this afternoon. So you can make it, stick it in your refrigerator, and then when you know you're going to bake it off, just pull it out. The recipe calls for 4 ounces of chocolate. And I don't know about you, but before I went to culinary school, I didn't have a digital scale in my house. So one word of caution to you: when you execute a recipe, you need to execute it the way it's written, meaning if it says 4 ounces, it means it needs to be weighed out, as opposed to if it tells you to use a half a cup. So where this recipe tells you to use 4 ounces of chocolate, the best thing for you to do is to go to the grocery store and buy a bar of chocolate that's 4 ounces. That way you don't have to be nervous about, oh, I don't have a scale. I know 4 ounces is a half a cup, but to be sure, go to the store. I don't work for the Ghirardelli people, but I have one here. This is exactly 4 ounces, and it's perfect. All you have to do is break it up, chop it up, melt it, and it works great. I will tell you, the recipe that I'm doing is half the recipe that is in front of you. So your recipe calls for 4 ounces of chocolate. I made half the recipe, which is just going to make 2, where the typical recipe that I gave you makes 4 of these. Okay. The other thing on this recipe that's important for you to know is that if you want to make it in a standing mixer where you are literally using the paddles or doing all the action, great. I gave you the recipe so that you didn't have to have fancy equipment, that all you need is a bowl and a whisk. What's important is that when you mix the eggs with the sugar, that you mix it a ton. It says there that it needs to become thick and light. It's really important. You'll see the eggs all of a sudden go from this watery state to more of a thicker state, and that's what you want. Okay, it's going to take you a couple minutes to get there. It's going to provide you with a workout. So here's something you could think about: pass the whisk around and have everybody kind of get into the whole whisking so that your arm doesn't fall off. So here's the batter. It's ready to go. And what I like to use with getting it into the ramekins is an ice cream scoop. They come in different sizes. It's really a great tool. It portions things out a lot easier for you. So, and it's cleaner, because the other thing is you want to make sure that you don't get a lot of the batter on the side of the ramekin, because it will burn. So you just want to make sure you fill this up about 2/3 of the way. And like I said, this is going to make 2 of them. So you can kind of eyeball what 2 of them are going to look like. So the recipe also tells you to use either semi-sweet or bittersweet chocolate. You can use milk chocolate, but this is such a decadent dessert that it's important that you want something that's really rich and decadent and kind of gives you that nice deep chocolate taste. And I think milk chocolate's fine, but for this, I would go with either the, as I said, semi-sweet or bittersweet. Chocolate, as I mentioned last class, when you look at chocolate and it talks about, say, 64%, that means 64% of that chocolate is the milk of the chocolate solid. The rest is sugar and a few other little things. So the higher the percentage, the more chocolate solid is in there. So we're just going to lay these into the ramekins. So what if you don't have ramekins? What are you going to use? Well, a muffin tin is a great option if you don't have these ramekins. Not everybody does. So don't think because you don't have these little white, little blue, red, green, they come in all many different colors. Just because you don't have one doesn't mean that you can't make them. So we've got our 2. I just want to make sure it gets spread out really well. And did I do a pretty good job? I'm going to steal a little bit from this one. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like. Now, some people get a little nervous with this cake because of the inside being very wet. You can kind of see they're both about 2/3 full. People get a little nervous. I will tell you that the temperature in the oven is going to kill anything. 161 degrees is the temperature for pasteurization. So because there's eggs in this, I don't want you to feel as though, oh, all that liquid is really unsafe to eat. It's not. It's going to get heated enough to make it safe. So we're going to put these in the oven at 450 degrees. I will say to you that most people would say, well, this should probably go on a baking tray. Remember, the heat has to go through the baking tray, that has to go through the ramekin, that has to hit the batter. So what I usually do is I put them directly on the oven racks. So I know it's a little scary at times. Don't be scared. Just go ahead and put them right on and they will be fine. The other thing that's really important about this, set a timer. Because you're going to be involved with so many other things, it's really important. The recipe tells you it's between 7 and 10 minutes. I'm going to set it for 8 minutes. Hold on. And I'm going to stop it and show you. Let's do it at 7 because I want you to see what it looks like after 7 minutes. The center is going to be a little concaved and it's going to be a little very, very loose. And I just want you to see that you don't want it, that's not done yet. So I want to make sure that you know what that looks like.
Christine, is there another way to melt the chocolate without a double boiler?
I'm sorry, Patrick, you're breaking up. Can you say it again, please?
Yep. Is there another way to melt the chocolate without a double boiler?
Yes. So if you want to do it in the microwave, feel free, but be very, very careful because chocolate likes to burn. So what I do is I did that. I took my butter and I took the chocolate and I put it into a Pyrex or a microwavable bowl. I put it at 50% and I did it every 20 seconds. So I'd go 50%, 20 seconds, I'd take it out, stir it. And it really only took me like 2 or 3 times before it melted.
Another question, do we have to grease a silicone muffin container?
Can you use silicone muffin containers? Is that what you're asking?
Do we have to grease one if we use?
I do. You know, I would much rather have you be safe than sorry. The other thing is you don't have to use butter. You can use spray release, or you can use margarine, or you can use one of the non, the dairy, non-dairy butter, some sort of way to grease it. It should be fine. Okay, so we've set the timer, and we're gonna cross our fingers, and I'm just gonna show you when it comes out, whether it's ready or not, and we'll go from there, okay? So now with that in the oven, we got one down, we've got more to do. The next item I'm gonna do is the pear tart. Now I gotta tell you, I'm sure there are those of you that are not blue cheese lovers. I hear it all the time. But I will say, think about trying something new. But more importantly, I want you to know that I don't know if you noticed on the recipe that at the end, it tells you that you're gonna basically dab or brush a little honey and water together. Blue cheese and honey are an amazing partnership because blue cheese is a very strong cheese and the honey literally just kind of balances out a little bit. So if you're one of those people that's like, oh, can't do blue cheese, give it a try, I promise. I know people might say, well, if I really can't bring myself to eat blue cheese, what else could I do? You could use cheddar, but don't use the honey. The honey is really there to balance out the really pungency of blue cheese. Don't, if you're not someone that really likes blue cheese, don't get a really stinky blue cheese like a Stilton. Get something really creamy like a Maytag, or even Trader Joe's makes a cave-aged blue cheese that's awesome. So when you get your blue cheese, you're just gonna make sure that you crumble it up. And I'm gonna start showing you a few things on the board. Everybody can see this hopefully very well. So puff pastry, I talked about it last class. It's a terrific product. And we're gonna make this little tart using puff pastry. And in the recipe, it talked about if you wanted to make it as one large pizza, because puff pastry comes in a rectangular sheet. You can do it all large, or you can cut it into pieces. And this is actually a sixth of it. So you can get 6 of these small ones. You can even go mini if you want to. And I've done that as well. So here's my puff pastry. I have my knife. And I've got caramelized onions. Now, if you don't have time to caramelize onions, even if you saute them to soften them to give them a head start, it's great. Caramelization is a low and slow process where the natural sugars in the onion start to brown. And it's great if you can do it. Now, I'm also going to be, yes.
Question. Is there something else that can be used besides onions?
You don't have to put the onion. Actually, I added the onion to this recipe. A friend of mine made this blue cheese and pear pizza, and I just decided to add the onion. So here's the beauty of being creative. If you don't like it, take it out. So could you put something else with the pear and the blue cheese? You could. I would just take it out if it's not something that someone likes. Okay. Now, I peeled my pear early. I'm using a Anjou. You can use a Bartlett. And I want you to see that it hasn't discolored. It's still white. And what I did was I put it in acidulated water, which is water and acid. So I have this pear that, as I said, I peeled earlier. And I just want to show you a couple quick things with the pear. You're not going to use the whole pear for one of these. You are going to use, here we go. You're going to use probably half of one. But what you do want to do is after you peel it, you want to remove the seeds inside. So a really easy trick is to take your teaspoon and just go in there and just pull it out like magic. So you can use that to get all those seeds out. So I have my blue cheese, I have my onions, I have my my puff pastry. Now I'm going to cut my pear. The thing that you want to do about this is you want to keep those pear slices nice and thin. So just nice and thin, just nice and slow, nice and thin. And again, what I like to do is keep all the slices intact. So you can kind of see if you were to make a large pizza, the large one, if you slice them all, you can fan them out. It's really pretty to kind of take the entire size of the entire shape of the pear, if you will. So just nice and slow. Oops. All right, we're not going to use all this. So let me just pull this out, put these aside. So we're going to take our puff pastry and just kind of spread it out with our fingers. Oh, there is the timer. Oh yeah. So let me just show you at 7 minutes what this looks like. It's really not done. Can you all see how loose this is? It's really loose. You can see in the center that it's almost like a big divot, which means it's definitely not done. So we're going to put them back in. And I'm going to set the timer for about another, let's go another minute just to be safe, even though I know it's not going to be done, just so we can keep moving with it. So back here, when you look at the recipe, it talked a little bit about taking your knife and scoring. Scoring means that you're not cutting all the way through. So let me show you a little bit how that's done. You just take a knife and you just draw this nice little, almost like a frame around the edges of the puff pastry. And what that does is it really does frame whatever it is that you're making. And it keeps, what you want to do is keep all your ingredients inside the frame. Because the weight of whatever you're going to put into it is going to keep the weight of the puff pastry down, and then everything on the outside is going to puff up so it looks really pretty. So here's our puff pastry that I've scored. I'm now going to take some of this. How quick a minute goes, right? Again, yep, not even close. So let's go again. So we're going to take our caramelized onion and we're just going to put it in the center. Now I cook these, little butter, little olive oil, and I put some thyme. If you don't like thyme, you could put, something else. Let's see. I really like thyme. I wouldn't put basil, and I don't think I'd put oregano, but you could. You could just take the thyme out and not even do it. Just caramelize the onions and just spread them out and keep them within that scored border. Okay, great. And now we're going to take some pears and we're just going to fan them out. You don't need many of them. And you're just going to lay them on the top in a nice little pretty pattern. And now we're going to take the blue cheese, except we're going to stop here. Yep, they have to go a little bit more, but I do want to show you what they look like because they're starting to get there. Let me show you this one. The problem is if you take them out too early and you go to invert them, then all of the liquid will spill out from the bottom and you don't want to do that. So can you all see it's a little bit wet in the center? I really am going to go just a little bit more. Okay. Now, back to our tart. You can all see that blue cheese going on top. You don't have to put a ton. You can put just a little. If you're a blue cheese lover, go for it. But don't feel like you have to coat it. Now, blue cheese is not going to melt. It's going to soften, but not melt like a stringy like a mozzarella, just kind of get nice and soft. Oops, we don't want that falling down there. So here's our blue cheese tart. We'll put that in the oven, and like magic, so here it is, all set up, and like magic, here's what it looks like when it's done. So you can see, I dabbed this with some of that honey and water to give it a nice little shine. I did a small one, and then this is the same size as the one we just did, okay? There's our lava cakes.
Christine, if you could speak a little bit more how you soaked the pear prior to cutting.
Yep, so all I did was I peeled it and I let it sit in that acidulated water, which is the acid, lemon juice and water. And I just let it sit there because it wouldn't, to help so it wouldn't brown. And so what I want you to think about is there are certain things like apples and pears that will, they'll brown. So what the acid in the water does is it stops the browning. Okay, now let me just show you what one of these looks like right now. So you can see it's a little bit dipped on the top, okay, but it's pretty well cooked. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna let it sit for a minute and then we'll invert it. Does anyone have any questions on the chocolate? Like what kind of chocolate? I have Calabo is one of my favorite brands, but we don't necessarily see it in the grocery stores. I told the group last time that the Ghirardelli Bittersweet wanted taste testing. And so I think it's a really nice chocolate myself. So let me show you real quickly what you're gonna do. I'm gonna move this over here so you can see. Let me tip the screen. So what you wanna do is you wanna just take a knife and gently run it around the edge. You're not cutting into it, you're just loosening it. This is a recipe from Chef Jean-Georges, who was W Hotels. He's from New York. Wonderful. This is his warm chocolate cake. And as I said, this is a wonderful cake. Like if you just, I'll show you. I'm going to invert one. And then I want to show you what it would look like if you put it on a plate and you didn't invert it.
Christine, would German or Belgian chocolate work, or does it really matter if you use milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Any chocolate, it's really, whether it's Belgian, German, French, American, does not matter. It's if it tastes good to you, then it's a good one for you to use. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna invert. I can tell this one seems a little looser, but this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna wait here. You can all see this, I hope. So what you want to do is you want to take your plate and you want to put it over the item that you're going to be flipping out. Actually, let me just do this. Let me get this rack out of the way because it's really annoying me. Okay. We're going to put this on top. We're going to slide it over. Okay. Now, don't panic if it doesn't come off right away. What I typically do is I shake it a little bit, tap it, and then you say a little prayer to the culinary gods that it will release. And hasn't come down yet. It will. I think I heard it go. Nope, it will. Other thing you can do is just tap it gently, or you can go on the other one. And again, let me just show you. If you were to serve this just like that with a couple of raspberries, it would be really pretty, okay? Well, we're going to try to invert both of them because that's what most people think that they like. So. Hot. Give a little shake. We'll give it a minute. Yep, we need a minute. And then I've got raspberries here. And then the other thing you want to do with it is you want to dust it. So I'm telling you folks, live performances. This is why television, a lot of times you don't see all the crazy stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Let's see that one. Give a shake to this one. Any questions while we're waiting?
What am I doing?
Oh, shit, dude.
Ah, there's one.
Oh, shoot.
And what you can do then,
Welcome. Oh, okay. You have a knife on you. Knife.
Kick it, Harry.
Oh,
Christine, you accidentally got muted. Can you unmute yourself quickly?
how's that?
Perfect.
Okay, so that one,
Oh, shoot.
and then this one is being a little more stubborn. This might be the butter one. Oh, there it is. There's the other one. We're gonna dust it with, whoops, powdered sugar. And we're gonna put a little bit of raspberries on here. And then we'll test to see how well we did with the lava. So there's one. Here's the other. And let's see. I don't think there's going to be a lot of spillage, but there's some fudginess. You can see. There's the fudge. There's the lava. Can you guys see in there the wetness down there? There's one. And here's the other. Yep, same thing with this one. It's more fudgy in the center than it is the wetness. So this one, if you want to go a little bit longer, you can, but you got a little bit of that fudge right there. Okay, so be careful with it, as I said, because the timing is critical as to how long you want to have it in there. Okay, so moving on. We're going to go back now to appetizers. We did the pear. We're going to do the whipped ricotta. So whipped ricotta is very, very simple in the fact that it's just the ricotta cheese that has, that you've whipped it with a either a hand mixer or a food processor. I like to put a little bit of olive oil with mine, because I think that it gives it a little bit more flavor. So what I did was I took some of this whipped ricotta and I added, it says in your recipe that you can use any kind of herb. I actually used chives. So you can see the little green bits of chive in there. And I blistered these tomatoes. So I put them in the oven with olive oil, some salt, pepper, and I put basil on them. And you just want them to begin to burst open. And so you are then gonna make little crostini. So you can use any kind of bread that you want. This is actually Italian bread. And I brushed it with olive oil and I put salt and pepper on it. You can put dried herbs. There's some really terrific herb blends that you can use as well. But because it's a very simple application, you can keep it nice and simple with just salt and pepper. The other thing that's great about the whipped ricotta is that you could just serve this if you don't want to do a crostini. You could serve this with vegetables. So carrots, tomato, peppers, whatever. And I just like to kind of spread it on. It's pretty easy to and very spreadable.
Christine, do dry herbs work better than fresh?
I'm sorry, Patrick, I can't hear you very well.
Do dried herbs work better than fresh?
I like fresh for this. Dried herbs I like to use when you're cooking or baking because they'll burn more. Like baking, if you're going to be doing something, I wouldn't put fresh herbs on the crostini. I would put dried because they'll burn a lot more. There's water in fresh herbs, so they tend to burn. And so if you do want to use fresh herbs while you're baking, you need to toss it in oil to kind of keep it moist and hydrated. And then I'm just going to take some of these. I decided to go with red and yellow because I just thought they were so much pretty. Even though this is Valentine's, I thought it would be pretty if we just did some red and yellow tomatoes. And then lastly, because I used chives, I'm going to I have a little bit of chives that I chopped. And you can keep them in the refrigerator in like a little container that has a moist paper towel on the top. It'll keep them, and then just give a nice little sprinkle over top. It adds a little color, it adds a lot of flavor, and it's just a nice little kind of appetizer that you can have. Okay, so there's that. There's actually a snowman on this plate, so don't think it's not a Valentine's. It was the only thing I had that was red. I thought it would be pretty to go with it. So, but there's a snowman underneath it, no hearts. But it's still snowman season, so I think it's fine that we are using it. So. Okay, so that's the crostini with the whipped ricotta. The next one that I have on there is the lettuce wrap. Now I just want to go back to the ricotta one more time. I want to make sure that you know that if you are going to be whipping it, you want to use full fat ricotta. It's going to give it more lightness and it's going to give you a lot better results. And also, I didn't tell you, when I made the pear tart, I made a mini pear tart just so you can make little mini ones. And then this is for especially some of our younger viewers, you can make mini pizzas. So this is just some mozzarella with some tomatoes. And this is actually the whipped ricotta with the caramelized onion and some tomatoes on top. So you can get super creative with this. The puff pastry is a nice option if you don't have bread dough, pizza dough, but just an opportunity for you to make little pizzas and everybody gets to have whatever topping they want on theirs. So I put together this lettuce wrap. I love the chicken lettuce wraps, but I thought it would be nice to do something with seafood. So this is shrimp, mango, avocado. And the dipping sauce that you make, you're actually going to put into the filling as well. And I like to use bib lettuce because I think it's a lot prettier than iceberg and it's a little healthier for you. So I basically just diced everything to be kind of the same size. And you can either put this out like I have it, where your companions can make their own, or you can already make them and fill them for them and put them on the plate and people just grab them. And then the dipping sauce is a nice little option as well. So options for you to have with the filling. If you didn't like shrimp, you could use lobster. You could use crab. If you're not a mango person, you can use pineapple. And speaking of mangoes, I wanted to mention to you about cutting a mango. So if you buy mangoes in the store, a lot of people get confused on how you cut them because there's a big stone or a pit that's on the inside of the fruit. And so the lesson for you when you're cutting a mango is turn your mango around. The widest part of the fruit is how wide the pit is or the stone. So if you turn it Okay, you now know if this is the width of the pit that's inside, you want to turn it and then go to each side of it and just slice all the way through and you'll be fine. Okay. All right. So we have our appetizers. We have our tart, our little pizzas. We have our wraps and we have our whipped ricotta. So let's talk about some more dessert. Let's talk about, let me just show you the fondue. This is what's great about this is that you can be as creative as you want as far as what you want to serve. You can, with COVID, maybe have like a little ramekin that people can, do their own sauce, dipping sauce, give everybody one, and then they can kind of take what they want. You can use anything from fruits to Rice Krispie treats, marshmallows. I'm a big fan of chocolate covered pretzels, and it's really simple to do. And you can be creative, Twinkies, Oreos. One thing I'm going to mention to you is that the chocolate may begin to get hard. And if that's the case, just put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds, give it a stir. You may have to do it again just to loosen it up because you do want to be able to, you do want to be able to dip and eat, and you don't want it to be hard. So that's just something to think about if you do decide to do a chocolate fondue, okay? Questions on that? All right. Let's get to the brownies. So I did a bunch of different options for you. I have them around the corner. I'll be right back. Here they are. So these are some of the options I'm going to talk about. Okay. So let's say you're deciding that you want to have a dessert, but you didn't get a chance to go to bake anything. So you go to the grocery store and you say to yourself, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? If you buy brownies, you can like zhuzh them up and make them really interesting and different. So this is, you have on the recipes 4 different ones. This is a brownie that I put in a muffin pan. So I made the brownie mix or the brownie batter. I poured it into muffins. And this is the white chocolate ganache that's whipped, that has chocolate shavings. I did one that has little sprinkles on it for Valentine's Day. How I did that is I made a little pattern. Okay, I went back to elementary school and cut out the shape. And then I laid it on top of the cupcake after I frosted it. And I put the sprinkles on top. And this, whoops, and this is what ended up happening. So a little Valentine's heart. And then the other one I did was I took the white ganache and I colored it. This is pink, obviously, and I put a little chocolate bit on the top, but just a different way that you can make brownies. It doesn't have to be in a square pan. I also did them in a square pan. And these are the Rocky Road. So this is the marshmallow with the chocolate glaze. And then for those that don't like nuts, that was nutless. And then this has got walnuts on the top. So you can just buy store-bought brownies and do something just to make them really interesting and unique. Okay. The one that I have here that I wanted to show you is, this is the chocolate ones with the mint. And what I did was I put them in a mini muffin pan and I baked the brownies, and I took a York peppermint patty. When they came out of the oven, I actually cut it in half and I put it on top of the brownie, and it got really soft, and I just spread it around the top so that it kind of, it's marbleized with a little of the mint and the chocolate, but we're going to finish it off to make it look even and taste even more decadent. So I'm going to show you an easy way to take whipped cream, which is a chocolate whipped cream. It basically just has cocoa powder and sugar in it and a little vanilla. And I'm going to show you how you don't have to have a fancy piping bag. You can just use a plastic bag that you might have. And this is where you can really be creative. You know, you can really decide, you know, if you want to go, you can dip them into, say, different kinds of frostings, whatever you want to make it a little different and a little special. My sister, when she makes brownies, she'll put half the brownie batter in the pan, and then she lays York peppermint patties, and then she puts more brownie batter on the top, and she bakes them. So you have that layer of that mint. So what you want to do is you want to take plastic bag and you want to create it almost like a cuff, and you're just going to put it over your hand and take your whipped cream, and you're just going to fill it into the bag. Pretty simple. And the reason why you put a cuff on there is that you don't want the whipped cream to be spilling out on your hands. So by doing that, whoops.
Christine, did you buy the whipped cream as chocolate?
No, did I buy the whipped cream chocolate, the chocolate whipped cream? No, I made it myself. Okay, with a little cocoa powder and sugar. So once I have the bag filled, you're gonna take my fingers and I'm just gonna push everything down to one of the corners. Okay, and now I'm gonna take the air out of it and just close it. And then I'm going to take some scissors and I'm just going to snip the corner of the bag. And then I'm just going to put the whipped cream, and then, whoops, it's starting to move a little bit. And then I have a little bit of a piece of York peppermint patty that I'm going to put on the top just to kind of give it a little bit more. And that's just an option for you to think about when you're making this. A little bit more cream. An option, okay, for brownies. All right. Now, any questions on any of the things that I have done so far before I get into some of the things that you can drink with the items that you're making? No questions? People quiet tonight? Okay. So I've given you some ideas on some quick and easy things that you can do with family and friends. And now I'm going to talk about some ideas of some things that you can drink with it.
Christine, just a quick question.
Yeah.
The molten lava cakes, do you need to worry about overcooking them?
Yes. But here's the thing I want you to realize, that if you overcook them, they're delicious just as a chocolate cake. My mom is someone that doesn't like the molten cakes. And so when I made when I was testing out the recipe, I literally baked hers all the way through. It's a delicious chocolate cake. One other thing I want to mention to you about with that is that if you are going to serve it and it's hot, I want you to think about not putting ice cream or whipped cream on top of it, because the hot cake is just going to cause the ice cream or the whipped cream to literally become cream. It's going to melt it and it's going to go over. Now you might like that and that's fine. But technically, if you are going to serve it, you want to put it on the side. You want to put it on the side. Okay. So we did 3 appetizers, a little different: pear, blue cheese, honey. We did the whipped ricotta that you can use in numerous applications, whether it's to make pizza, to serve it with crudité, or to do it as I did as a little appetizer on a piece of toast, a bread. And then we also did the lettuce wraps. And again, you have options there. Don't like mango, use pineapple. Don't want shrimp, use lobster or crab. The desserts, again, buy brownies. If you want with the Rocky Road, I didn't explain this. If you rinse the marshmallows, they get sticky and they will sit on top of the brownie better. They're not going to fall off. So that's why you rinse them so that they'll adhere and stick to the brownie. People love white chocolate. And so you can make a whipped white chocolate frosting. All you need to do is just, you'll see the recipe. It's cream and the white chocolate. And once you melt them, you'll have to put it in the refrigerator and let it get hard. And then you use a beater or a mixer that will fluff it up. And you can use it in so many ways, as I said. I dyed it pink. So again, limitless options for you. And even if you buy the square store-bought brownies, you got tons of options. So drinks, and I'm talking about adult beverages. Again, when I was thinking about tonight, I was thinking about things that are affordable and things that can be found all over the country. So these are 3 wines that are all under $15. The first one is actually a supermarket purchase. So you're out some night, you're at the grocery store, and you say to yourself, oh, I'm going to somebody's house tonight, or I'd like this little celebratory wine. The first option I have is a Prosecco. So Prosecco is Italy's celebratory wine. It's what they drink when they're having special occasions. And this is 90 Plus Cellars, which is a Boston company. These are a group of folks that decided that they wanted to provide affordable wines. So they scour the world buying these wines. And this was $10. I will tell you, the grapes were grown. It was made in Italy. So much so that if you know anything about Italian wines, there's a little like a cigar label that are on many of the Italian wines. And in Italy, they take their food and beverages very seriously. So there's all these kind of government regulatory groups. And in Italy, the highest level of wine has to have a DOCG label on it. This is the second level down, which is DOC, which stands for Designation of Controlled Order. So this grapes are grown in the Veneto region of Italy, which is exactly where you want your Prosecco to be. Really nice pour. This will go beautifully with the appetizers. It loves salty things, but it also will go with desserts. Now, the chocolate really lends to have a more of a bolder wine to go with it, but this will work. So if you buy this, you can have it both with the appetizers and with the dessert. So that's my first thought. So I took you to Italy. Now I'm taking you to Spain. So if any of you are Sauvignon Blanc drinkers, it's a great white wine. It's not as full-bodied as, say, a Chardonnay, but it's a light kind of crisp, citrusy wine. In Spain, what their nice, light, crisp wine is the Albarino grape. And this is a really nice, this company has been around for a really long time. This is Burgund's, and it is a wine that comes from the northern coast of Spain. It's got really nice fruit, citrus. It has a little pear. So it's actually going to go really well with that pear tart with the blue cheese. Even though blue cheese, you're thinking, it does love creamy cheeses, and it loves seafood. So an Albarino is a really nice option for those of you that are Sauvignon Blanc drinkers. Okay. The last one, and I love this story. So I'm going to show my age. When I was a little kid growing up, there was a television show in the 60s called My Three Sons. And it was about a man, a widower, who had 3 kids, and his crazy Uncle Charlie helped him kind of raise the kids. And the actor that played the father was a gentleman named Fred McMurray. And Fred McMurray bought a ranch out in California, and he actually raised Black Angus steer. And in 1996, the Gallo wine people partnered with the McMurray family, and they started growing Pinot Noir grapes. And this is my one of my go-to Pinot Noirs that I drink. It's McMurray Pinot Noir. It's got really good fruit. I think it's has more body than a lot of the Pinot Noirs that are out there. This will go really nicely with the apps, not the seafood as much as the crostini that has the whipped ricotta and the pear tart, because the blue cheese and the red will go great. But this will stand up and hold up really well with the chocolate desserts. Classically, when you're having a chocolate dessert, the wine that you want to drink is a port. Over the years, people have started drinking red wine with chocolate desserts, and typically it's milk chocolate, which is not as bold, goes with a less bold wine. So typically you'd say, oh, Pinot and milk chocolate are a great pair. But I'm telling you, this will go fine with the desserts we have tonight. And any red, like a Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon are a really nice option as well. But this nice little pour that will go with a lot of the things we did tonight. Questions? Wow, people are quiet tonight. Last time I had lots of different questions. So before I let you go, I do want to show you one quick thing. I want to just tell you, if you are a wine drinker and you buy screw tops, and please do not think screw top means it's a bad or a cheap wine. It has nothing to do with it. The way that you do it, some of you you may just kind of go here and try to turn it and open it that way. The way you want to open a screw top is you want to put your hand on the entire kind of capsule here. And oh, watch, my hand is like, ouch, my hand's a little sweaty here. And you're just gonna, whoa, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. We're gonna use my handy little, here, I'm telling you that this is the way you do it and I can't even open it. There we go. You just turn the whole thing and it turns. Okay, and there you go. Any questions?
Christine, would you find all these wines in a grocery store?
You can find definitely the 90 plus sellers. The others, I don't believe so. I think the other ones you'll find at a liquor store or a wine store, but not necessarily the grocery store. But all three of those wines you can find throughout the country. So it's not just, if you're in California, you're going to find McMurray. You're going to be able to find it. I've seen it in Texas when I visited my brother.
Another question, do you have a favorite way of preserving a bottle of wine in the unlikely event we can't drink the whole thing in one sitting?
Yes, I do. So not that I work for the company, but I like the vacuum in, which is a little bit of a rubber. You put the rubber stop inside, and then this takes all the air out. And so you pump out the air. That's an awesome way. You can keep that wine for a good week. The Italians claim that if you open a sparkling wine like a Prosecco, that if you put a spoon and you stick the spoon in the bottle and you let the handle of the spoon go all the way down. So you would put it where, let's pretend that this is the bottle. You would stick it inside the bottle like this. They claim that will help to keep the bubbles. But I don't necessarily know if I believe that, but that's something that they say.
And the last question, would you recommend to eat a meal in between?
In between what? Oh, I see what you're saying. Not necessarily. I think you could definitely, I don't know about you, but if you had, appetizers that were substantial, and this is the thing I tried to do as well. I gave you some seafood and I gave you, some creamy cheese. I gave you, a tart. You could definitely eat that kind of a meal, like a more of a lighter appetizer. But if you wanted to, do the old surf and turf or the vodka pasta that are very kind of Valentine's-y romantic, you certainly could do that as well. But again, I like more of the opportunity to sit with the people that I'm with and enjoy their conversation than feel like I have to go sear a steak.
What was the name of the wine stopper?
It's VacuVin is one of the companies, VacuVin. And it usually comes with like 2 of the little rubber stops. And you can just, as I said, I have 3 stops. I don't know why I do. But they work really well for them. And like I said, you'll keep the wine for at least a week with it. It's great.
And one last question, can you cook at our next reunion?
If I have a lot of help. If I have a lot of help. You know, I think of cooking and food as bringing people together. I tell my culinary students all the time, we're so fortunate that we get to celebrate with people when they're happy, but we also nurture them when they're going through something very difficult. And I think that, you know, being with the people that you love, whether it's on Zoom or in person, is so important. And I would much rather get in the conversation and not be in the kitchen. And so I hope that some of the items I've given you tonight are things that you can think about making, that you can just make them, put ahead of time, enjoy people's company, and pull them out and just have a wonderful opportunity and have a wonderful time together. So
This was fantastic, Christine. Thank you so much. And thank you
Thank you.
everyone for attending as well. We're gonna have this recording posted at some point next week, and we'll be able to send this out as an email as a follow-up to everyone. Again, thank you, Christine, and thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you have a great Valentine's Day weekend.
thank you all. Be safe.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Happy
Thank you.
Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
very
Chris.
much.
It was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.